Hey, this is StarCraft 2 History, Part 21, and this time I'm going to talk about TaeJa's 2013. And this is also going to be the return of life, because life actually has a brief return in form at the very end of 2013, and for whatever reason, the two of them are connected, at least in terms of peak form and play, and they, in my opinion, kind of define the most competitive era of StarCraft 2, which is from 2013 through 2015. So, for now, we're going to talk about TaeJa's 2015. And if you look, his results are pretty ridiculous. Within the last 6 months of 2013, he goes to 10 tournaments. And within those 10 tournaments, he only does badly in 2 of them: WCSNA Season 3, BlizzCon 2013. And the other 8, he is 3 of them top 4, and then he wins the other 5. And so that is a ridiculous resume. And it's something that's completely underrated at the time and even now, because basically what happened was people usually explain it as, oh, these 400 tournaments are weaker, they have less players, it's not as important, there's less prep time. But on the flip side, if you think about it this way, everybody acknowledges that Innovation is a great player. What people don't acknowledge, though, is the fact that he was on Acer, and he did have plenty of opportunities to win a bunch of these 400 tournaments. He couldn't do it. Not only that, but in terms of time, he has actually had the most time of any of the all-time greats to rack up these LAN victories. So basically, Innovation's form starts at the end of 2012 and goes down to the current day. TaeJa only lasts from 2012 to 2014, Life only from 2012 to 2015, MVP only from the end of 2010 to, I'd say, the beginning of 2013. So basically, Innovation's probably had like double the time of majority of the top players in order to get these achievements, but he hasn't done it. So just put that into perspective when you're talking about the importance of longevity compared to the importance of what I call a consistent peak, which is a period of time in which you are getting all of those LAN wins. Because in Innovation's case, he has like small peaks and then he falls down, mainly due to the meta, due to the patch balance. Basically, I've looked through his entire history, and he has never done anything when Terran has been weak, which isn't actually as much of a knock as you would think it is, but it's something you have to keep in consideration when you're talking about the greatest of all time. And now, what does this have to do with TaeJa? Because basically the point I'm going to get at is TaeJa has been unstoppable, basically, for this period of time. And he also has, in my opinion, done incredibly well during the Broodlord Infestor era. I'm not sure if I ever got into that, but basically he got into the top 4 twice in GSL during the Broodlord Infestor era. Once he lost against Life, and the other time he lost against, I believe it was Symbol, but it might have been Roro. Let me check. Because this is 2013, which is basically the fucking apex of... Yeah, he loses to Roro, the eventual GSL champion. And think about that. That is the literal apex of... that. Not the apex, but it's the highest skill level of Broodlord Infestor. And TaeJa is the last Terran standing against Broodlord Infestor. He gets to a GSL round of 4. That's actually so fucking amazing. Because he also had to beat fucking Sulky to get there too, which is a feat in and of itself as well. And then he has multiple LAN achievements within 2012. I think he actually wins like 3 of them: Summer Arena, Valencia Summer, Aces Summer. But wait, getting back on topic, 2013. So what was it about this 2013 that made it so special that Team Liquid basically voted for him as the best player of that year? And I actually was part of that voting process. I'm not going to reveal my vote, but actually, does it really matter at this point? Basically, I voted for Innovation, but I could actually see the case for TaeJa at that time, because if you look at the number of victories, the number of people he beats, it's actually fucking ridiculous. Okay, so I'll go through some of the victories first. Home Story Cup, 7. Not that good, actually. We can skip that. Basically, he beats a bunch of foreigners. The only guy I think I really respect in his run that he beats down is... was it? Let's see here. Stefano and Snoot. I think those are like the 2 good victories he has here. He beats Stefano in the round 16, and then he beats Snoot in the finals. In WCSNA Season 2, he gets the top 4. I believe he actually had some decent victories here. He beats Polt, beats Alive, and now that's an interesting question about Alive, is because back then everybody thought Alive was shit. I actually thought he was just okay, and I actually think he's okay today, but for whatever reason his stock has gone up since Legacy of the Void has dropped the amount of players, and Alive is like one of the last ones standing, and like he famously beat Innovation. So it really depends on your evaluation of Alive. Like, I don't think he's any better now than he was back then. I just think the scene was... Actually, he's a little bit better now, I guess. But that can be explained by the meta, the balance. But basically, my personal opinion is, like, the scene is a lot smaller. And that's why like, all the guys above him dropped out. All the guys around him that could have stopped him dropped out. All the guys below him, there's nobody below him. So that's kind of where he stands. I guess a feat of... grit, which is a pretty good recommendation, a pretty good virtue to have. Just stick around until everybody else drops out. So you go to DreamHack Summer. This is, I believe, one of the better ones. Let's see here. Actually, no, not really. Basically, he beats up a bunch of foreigners, then loses to Jaedong. No criticism against losing to Jaedong. Like I said, I think he was the second best Zerg of this year. He played actually a very similar style to what I think Life would have if Life had kept his work ethic up. But, you know, that's Life. As far as I could tell, as far as the interviews and as far as whatever extra information I was able to find, Life was a player who could keep it going for a very long time. This isn't a guy who practiced very hard, who had the burning passion to be the best. This was just an incredible player, and then when he was put into times when he wanted to try hard, he was unstoppable. But outside of that, he was just an player, and he didn't give a fuck. Let's see here. Asus, Rog, Summer. I believe this is the one. Yeah, this is one of the ones TaeJa wins. Let's see here. Good run was he beats Hyun in a best of 5. That's surprising. Okay. Beats Hyun best of 5, beats Alicia, and then beats San. So pretty good, pretty decent overall. And now we're gonna get to, I believe, the very good ones. Actually, we'll go through the last one I think is kind of also. He also wins Home Story Cup 8 at the end of the year. He beats, let's see here, Scarlet. Scarlet's actually pretty good. I think I'll go ahead and say I think this version of Scarlet, 2013 to 2014, is like 2 or 3 times better than modern Scarlet. It's just modern Scarlet is way more willing to cheese. So if she had combined the skill she had back then, which, you know, you can't really find it again, if she had that skill back then and she had her modern day mentality of cheesing the shit out of people, she would have been a much stronger player. And you see this in like a bunch of other players, like famously Rain did this in 2015 to get his GSL. So after that, he beats, see, Symbol is pretty good. Symbol was a top 5-ish Zerg for all of 2013, but like I said, there's like a big drop off after you get past the top 2 for this year. So basically, it's Sulky, then it's Jaedong, and then it's a drop off whether it's like Hyun or Symbol or whoever. I think only Life is very good at the end, but like I said, that's just Life being Life. So TaeJa beats Symbol, Scarlet, Symbol, Hero, Symbol, and then Hyun again. So it's all pretty. It's actually a pretty solid result, all things considered. Now the reason, and these are the last 2 tournaments, the reason people could argue for TaeJa as the best player of this year is going to come down to these 2 tournaments. Like, the rest of the tournaments are good. They show his consistency. They show his inability to fall down, because Innovation did fall down, and he was much better at the beginning of the year relative to the end of the year. But it was these 2 tournaments, because these 2 tournaments are basically GSL runs, in my opinion. The first one we're going to go to is DreamHack Bucharest. And in DreamHack Bucharest, TaeJa is going to... Let me check his group stages. Basically, DreamHack is like one of those tournaments where it's a fucking gigantic bracket. So you have to play a lot of different people. There's like 3 group stages of GSL. So as far as I remember, though, only Okay, yeah. So basically, in the third group stage, he actually has a decent opponent in Symbol. He beats him down, and then he get to the playoffs in single limb for the round 16. He beats Yu-Gi-Oh, and Yu-Gi-Oh is a Code player, pretty average overall, all things considered. He had a few upsets earlier on in the year, but I think this is about like a decent player, but not an exceptional player. Now he beats SOS, and SOS is, in my opinion, one of the best Protosses of that year. Fair play, beats Life. Now Life was on the ascendancy, Life was returning, and Life was, in my opinion, a top 3 star at that point. Beats Life, and then he beats Innovation in the finals. Now it's up to you as to where you think Innovation falls in the Terran timeline. At worst, top 3. At best, arguably the best Terran. Gets beat down by Innovation gets beat down by TaeJa again, since this is the second time they meet after the WCS Season 2 finals. And I didn't talk about it, but the WCS Season 2 finals is also another reason as to why TaeJa is rightly so highly regarded, because in that one, I think I explained it in the Bomber video, but basically TaeJa beats a shitload of players. He beats Innovation and Duck Duck, and as we know, Duck Duck would go on to be better than people expected. Then he beats Rain, and then he loses to Bomber. So pretty fucking good run there. And then, like I said, he wins this one, which straight up, if you beat three of the best players from each of their respective races, you can't deny that shit. Like this is probably the most tilting thing about talking about TaeJa, because I agree with everybody. You know what? Didn't have those strong GSL results, and you know what? Didn't do very well in WCS NA at all relative to how good he really was. Fair enough. He was not a good preparation player. He was not a good long format player, but you have to give him a little bit of slack for the GSL in terms of when he was his best at the GSL was Brulor and Fester era, and he still got 2 top 4s in that. And finally, when people look at his international results, they kind of just think in their minds, oh, they probably just beat a bunch of foreigners and weak-ass Koreans. SOS, Life, Innovation. Is that really a weak-ass group to you? Like, I don't know, maybe it is. But in that case, who do you think is actually strong? That's my question for those of you out there. And now the biggest feat TaeJa does in DreamHack Winter. It's the final tournament of the year. It's actually, in my opinion, better than BlizzCon that year. It's also better than a number of GSLs just because of the way the format works. So the way the format works is there are 4 round-robin stages seeded into a double elimination format, basically a TI format, if you want to think about it that way, where only the last player from each group is eliminated. And some of the players here were fucking sick. Life, Innovation, SOS, Jaedong, Hero, Polt, MMA, Naniwa, Hyun. Like, pretty sick lineup. But what really makes it for me as to why this is such a great feat and basically as good as GSL is because he gets, TaeJa that is, gets seeded into the hardest group. And basically he gets Innovation, like I said, one of the best Terrans. 4GG, arguably the best European Terran. European is a very vague term here because he was Korean. But basically he was a very good Terran. Better than people remember him as. And certainly proved that at the end of 2015. But basically, the 4GG was a guy who had only one style, and it was to bash you down. It was a very fun style, and if you didn't know it was coming, it was very effective. And then he also had SOS in his group. Show was free. Show basically, I didn't talk about this, but basically Life gives Show hope that he can maybe be a StarCraft 2. He can continue his StarCraft 2 career because what Show does at the very beginning of the year is he plays Life in DreamHack Summer, and in DreamHack Summer he completely upsets Life. He beats him in the round of 8, 2-1. And the reason this gives Show hope is because I got some confirmation, and some inside information. But basically, Show was already going out of StarCraft 2. He was already planning his Hearthstone career, and then he beats Life, and he thinks to himself, "Oh my God, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can win. Maybe I can still be good." It was all false hope because basically Show had a gigantic weakness in TVP and he could never figure that out. But he did beat Life, and that's all that matters for him anyway. And so basically TaeJa goes 4-0 in this group, beats Innovation, beats SOS, beats 4GG. In the playoff brackets, he meets Hero, beats him, beats MMA, then beats Life twice. He beats Life in the winners finals, then he beats Life in the grand finals. And unlike MLG, this is not an extended format, so he had to beat him 2-0 and then 4-2. So that was a really fucking crazy run. And to explain how good Life was, Life, let's see here, Life goes 4-0 in his group. He beats MMA, JYP, Pult, Stardust. Then he beats Naniwa, Innovation, loses to TaeJa, beats Patience. Patience had a really crazy run here, basically. Patience, he was an okay Protoss. I think this was the peak of his career, basically, was this tournament. And then TaeJa and Life meet in the finals. So there you go. That is actually, if you're going to cite a reason as to why TaeJa was the best player of that year, this is going to be the #1 reason why. DreamHack Bucharest, what an amazing run. What a dominant performance by TaeJa. He actually put Life in the fucking bin. This was like this, the domination that TaeJa gives to Life was actually kind of crazy. Because if you think about, I'm not sure, let me check. Was it one of these? Well, anyway, basically, I'll talk a little bit about the evolution of TaeJa versus Life, because I talked about it. Basically, Life was the guy beating down TaeJa when they first met in 2012. And what happened there was Life had both Broodlord and Fester, and he had the Mutiling Baneling style. And by the combination of those two, he was able to completely outrun TaeJa. And he also bring into a new tactical kind of way of thinking for the Zerg race, which is this very aggressive, very counter-aggressive style that exploited weaknesses in your attention, your defense. All right, and so TaeJa is the exact opposite, where Life is proactive, TaeJa is reactive, where Life is trying to kill you, TaeJa is trying to wear you down. And so when the two of them meet, it's actually a complete opposite of styles, basically, where TaeJa is trying to attack, Life is trying to attack, TaeJa is trying to defend. And basically it's basically like a volcano erupting into the ocean. The ocean wins. In this case, TaeJa is the ocean, and he basically just outdoes Life in every possible way. It's an incredible series, and in my opinion, like a great example of like what would happen if these two guys met, because if like there's always a grander theoretical arc of that everybody has. Basically, it's the idea of, when you talk about competitions, the idea of what's better, the perfect offense or the perfect defense. And for a majority of the time, people always cite the perfect defense will usually win. And in this case, it did win. But Life himself proves that the perfect offense can also win. It really depends on your own personal strengths, and you have to play to those. So this covers TaeJa's like ridiculous 2013. It's just a masterclass of domination, in my opinion, and completely underrated in terms of the runs he does. And it's only outclassed later by his own run in 2014, which is kind of ridiculous also, but we'll get to there when we get there. I'll see you guys later.